Welcome to Decades of Horror, the classic era.
You suck, Buddha!
This is episode 117, recorded January 16th, 2022.
Well, he does.
Gruesome Magazine.
I am your host, Jeff Mohr, and I do not support that last statement for all you enlightened folk out there. On this podcast, we cover the good, the bad, maybe even the ugly horror films released since the beginning of time through 1969. In each episode, we'll discuss the monsters, spirits, psychos, and villains that have haunted movie-going audiences since the dawn of film history. We also, decades before the classic era, are partnering with the Classic Sci-Fi Movie Channel. And I noticed recently our episodes are showing up on the Classic Horror Movie Channel and Wicked Horror TV, all run by the same company, these streaming subscriptions. They now include video episodes of the classic era. You can find those available on our Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, online websites across all OTT platforms. I got to find out what that means sometime, as well as mobile, tablet, desktop.
Over the top.
With me this week are my incredible co-hosts. Unfortunately, Whitney Collazo could not be with us today. I'm totally bummed, but happy birthday, Whitney.
Happy birthday, Whitney.
It's her birthday. Oh, yeah. Lord.
Happy birthday.
Miss you.
She's an ageless wonder. But Tad Hunt, co-host on Decades of Horror, the All of Them, is here. Also an accomplished artist, makeup artist, and writer. Tad, how you doing?
I'm not a makeup artist, but
I read. Well, you wish you were a makeup artist. I've seen. I know.
It is a dream of mine, but
comic book artist and writer. I should quit reading because I know who you are and what you do.
Okay. Did you ask me how I'm doing?
I did.
I have no idea at this point. I'm with you. Questioning my whole identity, who I am and what I do.
Also with us is Daphne, who is awesome, stupendous, and likable as hell. How are you, Daphne?
I'm doing real good. I'm excited to talk about this movie.
Yeah, me too. We also have a special guest host, fellow Iowan, Bryan Clark. And Bryan, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, other than I know that you're a huge, huge horror fan and was on the Attack of the Killer podcast for a few years.
Yeah. Also, I do some writing. I've got some short stories out in various anthologies you can find just by looking my name up on Amazon. I've got a little author page on there. And I'm also a contributing writer to Scream magazine, which is a horror magazine, sort of like Fangoria out of the UK.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. You were working on a piece here a couple of months ago. Oh, well.
The one I'm working on currently is for The Black Sleep with Bela Lugosi and Basil Rathbone and Tor Johnson.
Did you do one on Blackula not too long ago?
I did, yeah. It hasn't come out yet, but they've got it in the can.
Okay. I think that was the one that we chatted about. But anyway, Bryan is also like a super humongous kaiju
nerd.
Tokusatsu fan nerd. And if you scout him out on Facebook, his profile picture, he's holding the oxygen destroyer and obviously screaming maniacally. So if that doesn't...
What else do you do when you hold the oxygen destroyer?
I know. You must. Okay. A quick spoiler alert. So anyway, this pick is Bryan's pick. I'm not sure if we'd ever done this, if we would have done this without him. So I'm glad that he picked that. This is a spoiler podcast. We're talking about everything, and after all, the movie is 54 years old. So it can still be hard to find. All right. The film is Yokai Monsters, Spook Warfare from 1968, directed by Yoshiyuki Karada and written by Tetsuro Yoshida. Not sure that's a T or not.
Yoshida. Tetsuro Yoshida.
Yeah. And the cast includes Yoshihiko. Boy, I could read that just fine earlier today. Yoshihiko Ayama and Akane Kawasaki, Gen Kimura, and Takashi Kanda. Production company is Dai. Is that correct, Brian? Does that?
Dai,
Yeah. Dai?
Yeah.
Release date was December 14th, 1968 in Japan. It has many other, also known as, the Japanese was Yokai Senso. And also in IMDb, it's listed as the Great Yokai War. Also Yokai Monsters 2 and Ghosts on Parade somewhere. And this photo backdrop here is where it all began. And it kind of starts like The Mummy in a way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Cool beginning there.
Yep.
It did. So I'm going to do a couple of posters here first. So this is actually, it's a DVD cover. I don't know if I found any original posters. I think most of the things I found were recent.
I like it.
And this
that is probably the original poster, or one.
Oh,
of
you
them
think so?
anyway.
From '68, really?
Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, a lot of Japanese movie posters are this sort of photo collage style like this, rather than the painted ones that you'd be used to seeing genre movies from this time period in America and Europe.
Okay. I like that one too. I usually like these. And this is the box set, the Yokai Monsters collection, that we don't know when it was released. Brian bought his on October, but Arrow website says to be released in February. So keep your eye out for that. And it has an extra in that includes the Yokai War from 2005 from Takashi Miike. So,
Which is
You
a
get 4
sort of remake of this one.
sort of. Yeah, that's what I hear. All right, so keep your eyes open for that. If anything about this trips your trigger. I don't have any information on box office or budget or when it was filmed or where it was filmed. I assume it was filmed in Japan, but I don't know specifically.
Yeah, box office wise, it was pretty successful. The first one came out as, let's see, I've got it here. So the first one was 100 Monsters, which was released as a double bill with Gamera versus Veras, and that was a huge hit. And Dai asked Noriaki Iwasa, the Gamera director, to make 3 Gamera movies a year. And when it became obvious that was pretty much impossible, they immediately started work on Spook Warfare, and that was also pretty successful. I don't know any exact numbers, but it did well.
I did read that it was very well received in Japan, and it kind of looked like it spawned a whole industry of proprietary products. Although I don't know if they got anything from that. So let's go to taglines, and I only found one tagline that was on the DVD box.
The most bizarre monsters the world has ever seen. But you've never been to Iowa then.
Hey.
And that's how we roll. They are pretty bizarre. So let's get to first impressions. And if you don't mind, Brian, I'm going to leave you to last because I want to hear what Chad and Daphne think about this. So, well, you know what? I'm going to go with Daphne first because she texted us earlier, and tipped us off?
I think I texted you guys right when it was over. Yeah, I love this movie. I think it's great. I found the yokai very charming, which part of me feels kind of disrespectful because I'm sure that they're very dangerous and also scary. But because it was marketed a little bit towards kids and they seemed very benevolent and I don't know, charming. And I liked that whole feel through the whole movie. I've kind of talked about how I like when authors and movies and artists in general make things scary that are for kids because I don't know, there's just something in there about the inner workings of a child and scariness and horror, and I really dig that. And so I love that this is kind of wacky towards kids. I love the yokai. I love the music. I thought the music was great. The atmosphere with the smoke and the way the yokai just appeared and disappeared, I thought was really neat. And I loved the ending. I actually said out loud, "Oh," at the ending because I just thought it was beautiful and sweet. And I know that's just probably like people are going, but I loved it. I loved it. And I went and got, I ordered from eBay a copy of it because I wanted to watch it multiple times. And I think it reminded me of a manga and anime that I really love called Natsume's Book of Friends. And that has a young man who sees ghosts and kind of how he lives his life like this. And it's a wonderful, beautiful, like really, really deep story that really gets to my heart. And this kind of reminded me of that. But there was also icky stuff and gore and creepy creatures. So I thought it was great. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, very cool. That's what you got me excited for watching it because you were like, "Oh, I love this so much. I could watch it again right now."
Yeah. I did watch it a couple. I think I went like 2 days and then watched it again.
All right, Chad. In capital letters, screaming
yes.
at me. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm still good. I had never heard of the Yokai Monsters before. And so going into this, I didn't really know what to expect. And let me tell you something. When I was growing up, I watched the Saturday morning cartoon shows by Sid and Marty Krofft.
Oh yeah,
HR Puff and stuff,
yeah.
Sigmund and the Sea Monsters and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So I was always and stuff like that where guys were dressed up in monster suits and it was goofy. Sometimes it was goofy, sometimes it was serious, and I felt like this movie had that kind of charm about it in ways. The monsters were all very cool, their own little individual little personalities going on, and it was a cool movie. And there were some parts that were scary when the what was the main baddie again?
The Daimon.
The Daimon, yeah, when he's behind the shadow in the door, and you see a shadow on the wall outside the house, and she just like walks out, and she sort of disappears into his shadow, and was scary, and so yeah, and it had a dangerous edge to it, even though there were some funny moments, comedic banter between the ghosts and the monsters, and I just found myself I felt really good after watching it. It you know what I mean? It wasn't a chore to sit through like some of the movies we have to do. But I won't name any.
You wouldn't be able to get it right anyway.
No, I probably wouldn't. But this, I fell in love with this movie, and I'm kind of wanting to go and watch the other ones in the series now. And and the imagination behind some of the creatures was just fascinating. the girl with the stretchy neck with the face on the back that had a hand on the end of the long nose that she had. And I mean, it's just bonkers, but it makes sense within the movie. And so yeah, I liked it a lot. I really did. I really liked it a lot.
Yeah, I that's cool. I did too. And when I asked Bryan to be on the podcast and asked him to pick something to do with Japan, basically, because I knew he was so well versed in that topic, he was tossing up a Gamera or a Yokai. Oh, what the heck? Let's just get crazy. He said something like that. Go full wacko. And I'm glad he did, because it's a fun thing with anamorphic creatures that are so weird, but they do build this little bit of mythology where the grave robbers release the evil daimon, and then I don't know. I don't want to. I'm going to try to keep this to short because I don't want to get diving into all these weird little things. But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the setting. I enjoyed the interactions. I enjoyed how their different abilities. The daimon seemed by far superior in terms of superpowers, but the whatever he had, a yokai. It looked like he had them at his mercy. They just vanished into smoke, disappeared, kind of. So it was cool. And then I got into a whole, like I do. I'm like, well, what are these things? They weren't developed by the movie. They were around in Japanese lore for a long time, and so I'm diving through trying to figure out who these people are, and they all have names that most of them I believe we only got one name during the movie. Although, it could have been the translation, the subtitles. But that stuff is all cool, I think, to kind of look at that folklore and see where that comes from and how that affects the culture, and or how it's affected by the culture. So I'm very cool, and I ordered the trilogy to Daphne, so I want to see the rest of them. And I did hear about this before. Only because when we had Jerry Chandler, who's a regular listener, join us as a guest host, and he gave me a list of movies. One of them was a Daimajin movie, and I could not find it streaming anywhere at the time. But it piqued my interest because I hadn't heard of it, so I started looking for it, and then I saw how they were connected in terms of writer and studios, et cetera. So looking forward to checking those out as well. But all right, Bryan, when did you first see this?
Probably.
What were your first impressions?
I saw it probably, 10-ish years ago. I rented that AD Vision DVD that Daphne's got through Netflix back when they did the mail order service thing. Oh, yeah. And I'd known about them for a long time. They've been out of print, so they were hard to find. So until you couldn't just go to a local video store and get it. So the Netflix thing made it easy to find some of these stranger out of print movies. And it was kind of my introduction to yokai. I think I saw this one first, and then the first one, and then the last one. And this is probably the most fun of all of them, because there's way more monster stuff in this one than there is in the other two. I think the third one, in terms of story, is a little better. But it's a blast. I mean, I love old-fashioned man-in-suit monsters, and this is just absolutely full of them. And they're so wild in concept and design, and in personality, like you were saying. Especially with the Kappa, who kind of is the main character monster, I guess, and he's turned into sort of a very comedic. He's cussing out Daimon and just being kind of a arrogant, cocky little doofus, and attacks him, and then gets his butt kicked, and has to go round up all the other yokai to help him fight off this interloper. And that's something a lot of people think that they get kind of a nationalist read on this movie that, you know, we must kick out the foreigner sort of vibe to it. But it seems more to me, I guess, like it's more trying to say, look, Japanese lore is worthwhile too. You know, it's because Daimon is way more powerful than any of them alone. But when they team up to fight him off, it's, you know, I guess I see it as more of a positive thing than a sword clashing nationalist kind of a thing.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And you're saying that your friend Jerry recommended you watch the Daimajin movies, which are awesome. And Chikara Hashimoto, who played Daimon in this, is the guy in the Daimajin suit.
Oh, okay.
Movies.
Okay.
No, he did great in this one.
He's got very expressive eyes. I love it. And the Daimajin suit's the same way when they put him in that thing where the face is kind of a solid mask, but his eyes show through, and he's got a lot of performance just through his eyes.
Yeah, otherwise it's mostly just throwing his scepter around and fire and stuff like that. All right, so I thought about trying to go through the history of the actors and stuff, and maybe, I don't know if Brian got into that or not, but I just decided the yokai were the heroes of this story. So if anybody hasn't seen this, there's some general examples of what they look like. And I don't even know. So the one on the top on the right, that's the one you were talking about, or that we were talking about. Oh, and I've lost it already. His name is Aburo Samashi.
He's the ghost of an oil thief reincarnated as a yokai as punishment for his earthly crimes. Back when oil was the only way Back when oil was the only way they could heat their homes.
What was the punishment for that little fella right in the middle down on the bottom?
Yeah.
What did he do? He looks like
which one? Oh, the potato.
Mr. Potato Head. I kept expecting somebody to push googly eyes on it.
No, yokai aren't all that way because of punishment. Just Burasamashi.
Well, so that one is Nepepo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's depicted with indistinguishable wrinkles on its face and body as one head blob of meat.
Where's his face?
I kept trying to think like, oh, which one do I like? Which one is my favorite? But they all have such unique and awesome personalities and characters. They're just great. Each and every one is great. I love each of them.
The guy with the 4K belly.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's going on with that? I loved it.
And he has to hold his breath. Is that the deal, or
I don't know.
Wait, I have to take a breath, and then they lose the picture.
Ungaikyo is that guy, which is a mirror that reveals things' true forms, which is why they can see Daimon as the monster in his belly when you look at him in real life and he looks like the human that he absorbed. But for some reason in this movie, they decided to stick the mirror in the belly of a tanuki.
Okay.
It's open to interpretation.
Pull your shirt up. Boba Fett's on.
We were talking about Daimon. This is the evil character.
Well, that's such a great costume too.
It is.
It's such a great suit.
And he's apparently released when the grave diggers pull that scepter out of the rock, I guess. And then causes an avalanche to kill the grave diggers.
The design is great. I love it.
It is.
Like you're saying, I love how you can see his real eyes through the mask. And
even some of the details are just really cool, like on those little hooks or claws or whatever they are on his upper arms, and then how they're kind of like wings.
Yeah,
it's just really gruesome. And even like some of the bony like stuff around the chest plate area, I just thought it was great.
Great belt.
Fantastic belt.
The skulls. I love that belt. I'm going to have one made, I think.
Or does his legs like feathers too, or were they? Or,
Yeah, he has like
couldn't
kind
tell
of
if he was-
bird feet, sort
Yeah,
of.
yeah. Well, it does say he flies. He flies to Japan. Anyway,
And that's
Evil-
one he's
evil.
not. He's not something from actual lore. It was just made up for the movie.
Mm.
so
I don't think he necessarily doesn't look particularly Babylonian, but he looks cool.
no.
Mhm.
And he is apparently a four-fanged vampire.
Yeah.
He's got those split teeth there in the corners, and so how
Does
is
the
that now?
job.
He gets strength from the blood of his victims, but then he also like occupied them or possessed them or something.
I think
Yeah, and he,
Mhm.
the victims die and he takes over the form of the victim, maybe. Is that what it was?
Yeah,
yeah,
but then he created like a bunch of replicas too. That was
Yeah.
His face looks like one of the Japanese. What was the movie
Oni.
we did? Yeah, Oni masks, but a little bit modified for the film, I think. But the mouth and everything looks like very much like one of those. And what was the name of the movie? Was Anabusa? Not Anabusa. Oni
Onibaba.
Baba. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So and some of the more interesting creatures, the long-necked woman.
Man, I loved her.
She was awesome.
Rokurokubi.
Mhm.
And I loved her voice too.
Mhm.
And that scene where you could see her through the wall, through the
Yeah, the shadow
paper
light.
wall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so cool, that scene.
Yeah, it's a clever way to get around
Hmm.
not quite having the techno, like making someone's head stretch out or neck stretch out
Right.
like that. That's difficult to do on a tiny budget and a very short filming time, but simple tricks like that,
Mhm.
shooting behind that paper screen is a good way to get around that.
Yeah.
Ikuko Mori is the actress who played the Rokurokubi. She was in a lot of Zatoichi movies, which are samurai films of the blind swordsman from the same studio, and the writer and director both worked on a bunch of Zatoichi movies as well. And she also had a small role as a quote-unquote sexy dancer in The Invisible Man versus the Human Fly.
Oh, I just got that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I haven't watched it yet.
I like the Edward Mordrake
Yes.
face on the back of her head. That was cool.
Well,
too.
that was the two-faced woman. That wasn't the same one.
Yeah.
No, this
Niemen
isn't the same one.
No, two different
Okay.
ones.
Okay.
I
Niemen
think
Ona.
is that her on the left in that middle picture. Maybe I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell.
Yes.
But it was like.
Oh, okay.
Drake. Boy, there was some weird descriptions about that. Let's finish with the pictures. This one I thought was awesome.
The umbrella.
Yeah.
I love it.
I like the noises she would make.
Uh-huh.
That was cool.
Casa Obaki. So,
Hmm.
I think she
Yeah,
was
the
referred
ghost
to
of
as an umbrella monster by one of the others. Yeah.
old umbrellas turn into Casa Obaki. Got that big tongue hanging out and one leg
Mm.
and arms attached. And then I think there's one scene where she's kind of opened up too.
Hmm.
I guess that's not true. But I don't know. It seems like the women yokai are the weirdest ones. Like the men making up the folklore are really screwed up.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, I guess the belly guy you said wasn't real, or wasn't based on an actual.
Well, I mean, he's a tanuki. That's a fox spirit. So that he was, but the mirror in his stomach thing is
Mhm.
usually a completely separate entity. But I suppose
Mhm.
that was just the easiest way for them to portray it, was attach him to another creature.
I love how these creatures just look so out of this weird and fantastic. And they also have powers that sort of help them the plot move along. You know, with the TV belly and all that kind of stuff. It was just, I just think that's great.
Well, they had the characters too. They had this. I think it was was it the two guards? The one guard was all scared, and then the other guard like rubbed something on both sides of his face.
Yeah.
And then the guy turns around and catches him with it, and he takes a bite out of it.
Yeah.
Or wants them, and it was just insane. Just crazy.
I don't know if that was supposed to be fish or tofu or what that was.
Yeah,
It was
I
way
don't
out of his
either.
face,
I don't
but
know what it was supposed to be either.
We'll just assume it's edible, whatever it is.
It made me wonder if the kind of comic relief, the like gravedigger guard type characters are almost universal, because they were just characters you've seen before, you know, where there's these wacky, almost Abbott Costello bits there, which I thought was interesting too.
That's what I said. They blended the humor well, though, and the scares and everything. It blended it very well, where it didn't seem like anything was out of place. You know, when it was scary and the gore and all that, there was that, and it was scary. But at the same time, you had those other little interactions that were like, "Who's on first?" routines,
Right?
You know,
that's what when Daphne was saying that she thought the monsters were charming, and that you know, she worried that was going to sound disrespectful, but they're supposed to be. They're not just scary. Yokai are just they're part of life. They're not necessarily out to commit evil. They're also creatures, and like the Kappa in this movie, the Kappa is a goofball, and there are a lot of regional variations of that particular one. So sometimes they're just playful, and they like to sumo wrestle and fart a lot.
Yeah. I read that.
And at worst, they're vicious monsters who will drag you into a river and rip the shirikodama, or pearl of the soul, out through your butt and eat it.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly where I figured it was too.
Yeah, and in fact, it said they had 3 anuses that allowed them to pass 3 times as much gas as humans.
Why not? Yeah.
I have to tell my brother about this guy.
The bottom picture looks like he's got all 3 in use.
This is the brother you do the poo jokes with? Is that?
Yeah, and he's going to kill me because he's like, oh, great, I'm that guy. Well, you know, when we were little, right?
Yeah,
but maybe that's why it's such a good, just being part of life, that does kind of change how you might interact with them. And I think that's really nice. Thanks for explaining that.
Well, and he had this, I don't know, you can see it in any of these pictures, but this like flat concave thing on the top of his head that was supposed to have water in it. I'd read about that. I didn't get it from the movie, but that they got their strength from it. If they lost the water, they would weaken fairly quickly.
and easily distracted by cucumbers.
Yes.
So if you have to travel near a river, carry a cucumber with you in case a kappa attacks.
That explains where the gas comes from.
I was going to say, somebody with that many anuses I'd be worried about cucumbers too.
It's a sad fact that none of us can say, I knew a person with 3 anuses.
It is.
I saw it in the movie once.
Well, I did find this.
Life's not worth living anymore.
Well, he was hilarious, and Brian, you described him perfectly in that he shows up. Oh, I had to take care of this guy, and you're you don't know what's coming for you. The diamond makes short work of him.
Doofus was perfect.
He runs off to get help, and nobody will help him, or they won't believe him.
They don't even believe him. That was so perfect. They didn't believe him.
That's funny because that's usually a thing that you get with like kids in 50s monster movies. Right? Oh, there's a monster, and the sheriff is always, oh, you're hot rodding hooligans. You don't know what you're talking about, and nobody believes them. Nobody believes the people that there's a monster, and in this movie, the monsters don't believe the monster. That
Yeah.
I think Steve McQueen was under the Kappa mask.
The spirit.
Yeah, this particular capo he lived in the pond outside the Lord's mansion, and when Daimon comes in and is ripping the shrine to pieces and throwing out all the Buddha statues, he throws something into the pond and hits the capo with it, and that's what makes him realize that something's up. And
yeah, he's just kind of curled up on the bottom of the pond taking a nap or something. So Chad, the woman with the two heads, the two-mouthed woman.
That's what she's called?
Fudakuchi Onna. Well, that's what Wikipedia calls her. Well, actually in the, I think in the credits it called her that too. Two-headed woman in the credit.
That was an awesome character too.
Mm-hmm.
That was a creepy looking face back there.
Mm-hmm.
It was with that great big long. It was
No.
like olive oil told a bunch of lies and
Yeah.
too long. And
And then it grew a hand on the end.
I grew the hand on the end.
That's one lie too many, olive oil.
So
I
what's
like
the
how
background
they-
on that, Brian? Did you see anything about that?
yeah, the Nimen Onna is what they call her in this, but Fudakuchi Onna is the more traditional folklore
Okay.
one. And yeah, like you said, it's just a mouth on the back of the head, kind of like that movie that came out last year, Malignant. More along those lines. It's not a whole face, but they made it a little somehow less horrifying and a little more horrifying at the same time in this, because but it's interesting, when Daimon decides he wants to drink younger blood and orders his henchmen to round up all the children in the area so he can eat them, and that's kind of the turning point when the yokai realize they do need to go help Kappa get rid of this foreign creature, and she's kind of in charge of keeping the kids safe when they get them all rounded up in that one room together, and the kids aren't afraid of her or of the other yokai. They're because they're monsters, but they're familiar monsters, and clearly not there to do any harm, so they're cool with it.
Yeah, I loved how they just ran in the haunted area, the known kind of area, and we're just talking to the yokai, telling him what was going on. And I thought it was so awesome when the yokai were like, "Oh, put those wards away," or put they're wearing their necklaces. That they had more power over the yokai than vice versa. And I also like how that yokai that you were talking about, the two-faced woman, she also was kind of nurturing toward. Well, they all were kind of took care of each other. The yokai, they were sweet to each other, kind to each other.
They were like a family. They
Yeah.
were like really like a family.
And I thought it was interesting that the kids weren't frightened of her. Neither was the Lord's daughter when they came and told her, come follow us to the cemetery or whatever. And she just went with them.
Yeah, that was cool that the kids almost it's like Brian said, that they're part of everyday life. So these kids were probably aware of them and that not scared of them. I thought that was cool. And it's always when Godzilla became a good guy, I know it made me happy.
Well, it was also the guys that they sent after the kids were like, "Oh, don't go in there. There's ghosts in there." And the kids won't go in there. And it's like the kids were totally in there. They ran in there.
Yeah.
Not scared.
Well, the two-headed or two-mouthed woman, the description of her is far more gruesome than what we got. Because you're right, she was sort of a weird caricature that was kind of funny, although still pretty strange. But this idea that it was somebody that didn't eat. What was it? Her husband was a miser and wouldn't allow her to eat because it costs too much. but then she ate, but he couldn't figure out why his supplies of food were going down so fast. And it was because this mouth in the back of her head ate twice as much. They're strange.
It's strange, but I think a lot of Japanese movies and lore about their some of the characters and stuff, the more out there they are, even though they are out there, it seems like there's always something that normalizes them. If I'm probably not making my point very clearly, but there's always, like, they always have a backstory, and they all have that. So it's something that sort of grounds them in being humanity. You know what I mean? And but then they go on to become these creatures and ghosts and monsters and stuff like that. I just think it's cool.
Yokai come from the Shinto thing, which is an animist belief that everything has a spirit. So that's why you wind up with things like the Karakasa Obake, that it's an old umbrella, things hang around long enough and that spirit gains sentience. And that's that's why you don't have a lot of pawn shops in Japan, because people don't necessarily want to get somebody else's negative energy haunting something they bought secondhand. So that's not really a thing. And when you throw something out, it's customary to thank it for its service, so that it doesn't feel neglected, because neglected things, the spirit can turn bad. And that's so, like we were talking about with the kids not being particularly scared of the monsters and them being part of everyday life. It's something where they might look weird, but like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean they're dangerous. It's all about how you go about interacting with them. And if you're respectful and if you know how to coexist, then you'll be just fine. And some of them are dangerous and some of them are tricksters, the scary version of the Kappa, for instance, like we were talking about. But
I like that.
Yeah, that's what I thought was interesting too. They, it's like, well, they're kind of ghosts, they're not ghosts, they're, imps, they're this, they're that. Some can be dangerous, some can be friendly and helpful, and some can be impish.
That's the cool thing about it to me, is you can have characters like that in your movies. There's not many pitch meetings for American films. This is going to be an umbrella, okay? It's going to be a ghostly umbrella, and it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. But over there, it's just because it's part of the history and part of the, myths and legends and stuff. I guess people are more ready to accept stuff like that, or they do accept stuff like that. Whereas here, you throw your umbrella out the window of your car going down the highway. Some people do. They don't care about stuff that old stuff that they might lose, or it's just not as important. So I find that a very cool point.
And it makes them perfect for movies like this that are designed for a little more younger of an audience too, because kids love monsters. Kids love to be scared. Everyone talks about how great horror movies were that were aimed at kids that made back in the 80s, and like, Monster Squad and stuff like that, because kids like to be scared. They can have a little bit of an edge to their entertainment. So these are monsters that kids can relate to and be a little bit scared of, but also know that they're kind of the good guys and they're on their side.
My grandson, whose room I'm sitting in, and I'm bathed in the glow from his monitor because there's no other lights in his room. But anyway, he's a big horror fan, and he was on one of our podcasts. I was showing him some of this and showed him some of the pictures of the yokai, and he was, the long neck woman. Oh, that's creepy. The behind the shadows, and when she's all wrapped around. There was several of those shots where he was like, "Oh, that looks bad. That looks pretty good." He was fired up to see that. And he's 17. I think the 11 and 12-year-old would enjoy them as well. And there's nothing really
young.
What's that?
Do you think 3 is too young? Do you think 3 is too young?
Actually, that might not. I don't know.
I just cannot wait to start showing him stuff.
I think the only stumbling block there is the subtitles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They don't need subtitles. So.
I'm mostly kidding, but I'm just waiting.
Mostly,
Mostly.
they come out at night. Mostly.
Well, I forget what movie was it Whitney watched with her nephew.
Oh, she watched. Oh my gosh, she watched. It was.
What?
Remember we were talking about if it was Giallo or not. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. It was not a kid's movie.
Jeff always asks the tough questions.
I'm asking you because I don't remember.
I think that was the one. Yeah. Oh no, it was the one with Boris Karloff. The anthology.
Oh, Black Sabbath.
Oh, Black Sabbath.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. But and the 3-year-old was making comments all along the way. She needs to get out of there. Long before the adult figures out that they have to get out of there. So kids are great with that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched horror movies with my kids since they were roughly that age. And we always had the conversation before, this is a movie, and these people all get up and wash the blood off and go home and have dinner with their families at the end of the day. It's all make believe. On the same note, if you get scared, we can shut it off because that's okay.
Right.
These movies are supposed to be scary, but we always had a dialogue about it. We'd always talk about it,
Right.
and they were fine with it. There were certain things that didn't take off until they were a little older, like they couldn't stomach the idea of Chucky. Just he was too creepy. They didn't want anything to do with that. But stuff like this, certainly Monster Squad, like I was talking about. My daughter's favorite movie is Dog Soldiers, and has been since she was like 6.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah. Eli, when he was his mom's a big fan too. But Eli early on, he was fairly young. And he showed me a video, one of those videos, where it says, "Oh, here, watch this point real closely," and then all of a sudden the face comes out and scares you. So then I said, he thought that was great. So I said, "Well, I got one for you," and I showed him the "Want to see something really scary" clip from the Twilight Zone movie, and he literally jumped out of the chair and ran out of the room, going, "Why did you do that?" And then comes back and goes, "That was awesome." And then we watched, and I don't know what I was thinking, but we watched the first Insidious, and he said, and I was thinking, in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't think there's not bad language, it's not bloody, there's not sex, but wow, he was clutching his mother through the whole thing, and he wasn't, I don't remember when that came out, but I'm going to say he was probably about 10, and then he was totally freaked out. And I said, I guess that was a bad idea. I'm sorry about that. No, it was awesome. It was.
See, it's like I said, kids love to be scared.
Yeah.
It was the Tiny Tim song that did it, wasn't it?
Yeah. They'll always do it. There was. I'm sorry, we get off on these nostalgia tracks sometimes, especially me. I'm trying to think. There was something else I saw here. So is there anybody in this that adds that has a reputation? You talked about how the director, and I know the writer also did the Time Machine movies, and some other stuff like that. What about cinematographer or special effects? Who did the suits?
The special effects are Yoshiyuki Kuroda, the director. He did the special effects for all 3 of them, but this one he directed the whole movie. The other 2 he worked together with. Kimiyoshi Yasuda was the director of 100 Monsters and Along with Ghosts. Okay. And then Kuroda just did the special effects for the other 2. And they worked together kind of in the same way that Ishiro Honda and Eiji Tsuburaya did with the Godzilla movies, where Yasuda directed the human stuff, and then Kuroda, he didn't just build the suits; he was directing the scenes with the monsters in that. And it wasn't in this one. In the first movie, Keizo Murase helped build the monster suits, and I'm sure they reused some of the suits for this movie because some of the same yokai show up. And Keizo Murase was the guy who built Mothra and King Ghidorah and Varan. So a lot of the people, because Toho had a dedicated special effects unit, which was kind of unusual at the time. Most studios didn't have the space or the money to do that kind of thing. So a lot of the people who worked on the Godzilla movies would go off and do other things for other studios. Like Murase did a lot of work on Gamera as well.
Very cool.
Yeah, I was noticing that the special effects, at least on IMDb, says Toru Suzuki, and he's got a long list of Toho credits. I don't know what he did for them. Special effects assistant, I think, is what it says on most of them. But if you go back, there's Mothra, King Kong versus Godzilla, Gamera versus Barugan, Gamera the Invincible, Gamera. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the big names you hear like Murase or Eiji Tsuburai, they weren't the only people. He didn't single-handedly build these suits. It was a whole group of people. So, Kuroda also did some episodes of Mirror Man and Jumborg Ace for Tsuburaya Productions. Those are sort of like Ultraman type shows. He directed a lot of episodes of the Zatoichi TV series that spun off the movies. He did the last Lone Wolf and Cub movie. I don't know if you guys have seen any of those. They're not horror movies, so we're a little off topic here. But
I've read the comic. I haven't seen.
Yeah, I've read the comic. I think I saw part of the movie, but
sorry guys, I'm trying to, and I can't, so I give up.
What are you looking for?
I was looking for a way to turn the brightness down on this monitor as well. And it's not where it is on mine. So
you are experiencing some severe illumination.
I know. I want to go. Welcome to Lights Out. Yeah, it's. I love when we do films from other cultures, like we did the Macario from Mexico a couple episodes ago, and then Black Sabbath. We've done several Baba movies. All those help, I think, see that in a way horror is universal, but also when we see it from the other cultural aspect, what are the things that have developed in that culture? I mean, when I was flicking through the internet looking at yokai stuff, I saw a picture of Kappa that was from 1836 that somebody had drawn. So it is centuries old.
Yeah, yokai were seen in art as far back as the 12th century is the earliest time they showed up. They really blew up in popularity during the Edo period because more and more of the population of Japan were becoming literate, and commerce was becoming a bigger thing. So yokai, there were yokai trading cards in the Edo period, and people would use them as mascots for their businesses. In fact, there's one yokai that's a boy that carries around a plate of tofu, and they're fairly certain that was just invented as a mascot. There was no actual folkloric component to that. But whoever could give the lie to that is long dead, so there's no proof. All they have is the art remaining. But eventually the national sentiment at large kind of turned against them because Japan was wanting to become a bigger power in the world and were afraid that the rest of the world would look at them as a bunch of backwoods yokels if they were just running around being scared of bouncy long-tongued umbrellas all the time. And so they just sort of fell out of favor. People stopped telling the stories and that. And in the 1960s, a manga artist named Shigeru Mizuki started this comic book called Gegege no Kitaro, and then which spun off into an anime series, and it's still running today. And that started this huge yokai boom, which is where these movies came from. The yokai had become really big in pop culture again, and so we wound up with these cool live action yokai movies.
Yeah. Well, what was I thinking? I thought I saw something about one of these characters, and again, I'm not going to be able to find it. Oh, the Kappas was in the Ultraman Ace series. Just lots of crossovers. Okay. Well, let's. We got any other anything we want to talk about that we haven't? Anything you wanted to say, Brian, that you didn't get said, or anybody have anything they want to say, or questions they might have?
Masao Yagi, is that the guy you're thinking of? The monster builder? I just found him that name in my notes. The special effects guy.
Oh, okay. I wasn't thinking of anybody. I just assumed that there's crossover, but and the credits on this stuff is really limited.
Yeah, I think other than just having written down a bunch of the other, I could just sit here and read a list of yokai, but that would probably bore everyone to tears. So I've got through everything I had in my notes, I guess.
Any final comments?
It's great. Watch it. It's great.
Yeah, I agree. It is. It's something that I went in not knowing much about, and and I love kaiju films and stuff like that. But how these movies got away from me, I'll never know. But it was really a treat to finally watch one, and I just feel like, I don't know, if you feel like you're a little kid watching Ultraman again, and shows like that and movies. That's what. So it gave me a good feeling to watch, and it was very fun movie, and scary too. So yeah, if you are like a kaiju fan and you've never heard of it, yeah, get on it, because it's really, really good.
Yeah,
that's cool. I'm glad you guys liked it. When Jeff asked me to pick a movie, I wanted to do something a little outside the box and maybe try to pick something that would be new to people rather than not that I don't love talking about Godzilla, and as anyone who knows me in real life will attest to, I never shut up about it. But I figured it would be fun to kind of spread the word of something that's a little more obscure. But I was wondering if maybe you'd consider it a little too kiddie or weird or goofy or something.
No,
I'm glad it was a hit.
No. Yeah,
No,
we've covered the Oily Maniac on.
I love the Oily Maniac.
Yeah, so do I.
I have a giant Sofubi figure.
Do you?
Oily Maniac, yeah.
Oh wow! So yeah, this is right up our alley here, and that's the cool thing. We've said this 100 times on here is everybody knows Creature from the Black Lagoon. Everybody knows Frankenstein, stuff like so. To find these little gems that you never heard of it before, and then enjoying it is
Right.
a real treat.
That yeah, it is, Brian. That's I think what we're really enjoy about this is one, talking about the movies we love, but two is maybe turning people on to stuff that we love that isn't as well known, or even just taking a wild shot, trying something different. Once in a while you hit a total dud, but not that.
Yeah,
often.
just ask Daphne. Her picker's off.
Well, as a matter of fact, we will find. Did you pick one for next episode, Daphne?
Is it my turn already?
Yeah.
But I was thinking Mumsy was the last one I picked, but
That was
That was
7.
for
That
was for 70s. Yeah. We can do it again, right? It was 1916.
We're
close
giving
to
her a hard
60.
time for.
I've got a couple, but I haven't picked
Okay,
one. I'm
okay.
sorry.
That'll be a
I
mystery.
spaced out on that. I thought Joseph was going to be with us next episode, so I got really excited. I'm thinking Kuroneko.
Say that
That's a
again.
good one.
I'm thinking I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but Kuroneko,
Oh yeah.
maybe. Got a couple.
I had a bad feeling she was going to say Hour of the Wolf.
Yeah.
Oh no, I could always do seventh seal.
So have
That's
you
okay.
seen Brian? Have you seen Mumsy, Nanny, Sonny, and Girly?
Of course he hasn't. Nobody's seen that.
I have not. I take it I shouldn't.
It's a
It takes all kinds in this world.
British film directed
really
by
does.
Freddie Francis.
Oh, okay.
So who knows what you might think of it.
So I might actually like it then. So
Well, but yeah, Chad says it's not Freddie Francis. I can
I
understand
quit.
that.
I quit.
It's unlike any Freddie Francis movie you've ever seen. All right. Well, I don't have any feedback rounded up here, so I guess that's it for this episode. And like always, every 2 weeks we'll be focusing on a specific film from released between 1920 and 1969. Next up. Oh, I see what you looked at. That's just left in there. I'll show you where it said Daphne. Next up is one chosen by Daphne that we don't have any idea what it's going to be yet, but it's going to be
Figure
good.
it out tonight.
It's going to be good. There's
Thanks,
no hurry.
Brian. Thanks, Brian.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Brian. I
Yeah.
appreciate
thank
it.
you. Thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Joining in our unprofessional, least possible organization method of doing podcasts. So,
Hey, you listen to Attack of the Killer podcast, dude. I've never done a professional
I
podcast.
have. But I do appreciate it, and I really enjoyed your input, and I think it was an
Thank
awesome
you.
pick.
It was a great
So-
It's
pick.
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Love to come back and do it again sometime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well,
We
you
may
can
have to
we can
do
do
that.
Mumsy again and have Brian on.
Daphne, will you?
No?
Released in the U.S. as just girly, because the powers that be just didn't think Mumsy and Nanny were going to sell for some reason. Anyway, boy, we're really cross-pollinating these podcasts here,
Yeah, sorry.
Chad.
I took a Benadryl before the show.
Plenty of ways to stay in touch. Please, you can send feedback to feedback@gruesomemagazine.com or leave comments on the YouTube channel, Gruesome Magazine YouTube channel, or go to Gruesome Magazine's HNR and DOH podcast Facebook group. Leave comments on the website. There's just tons of ways to do it. And periodically I scoop them all up and we read them at the end of an episode. I just didn't do it this time, but we will next time. So catch us again here in 2 weeks for another great horror movie of the classic era, as only decades of horror can do it. Say goodnight, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Ugh.